Okay, so we're back with part two. And what we want to do now that we've seen the basics of how file uploads work is we want to integrate this into our music library site. I think I did turn my mic on this time. So what we want to do is I want to include images, the ability to upload an image into our music library. So I'm just going to go back. So what I'd like to do is once I'm logged in, obviously I have a read-only view of the site right now, but as a logged in user, where I can add and edit. Okay, great. Thanks, Stella. So when I go to add, I should have the ability to include a photo, or if I'm editing, I should be able to also upload a photo. And if there is a photo, I should see it displayed here. Okay. So we'll want to attach those files to the artist. Now, your database might look different than mine. So we need to do a couple of things in terms of setup. The first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to add a column to the artist table in the database. And then the second thing we'll need to do is grab some images. Now, I've included some. These are the artists in my database. They may be different from the artists in yours, which is fine. So there's two items here on D2L that we're going to look at. So I'm going to open up my database with my SQL Workbench. Still connected to my VPN. You can see my little green icon here. And actually, just while I'm waiting for it to open, I should mention as well, I did put one other item up on D2L. So this is a little 10-minute YouTube video done by another developer where they do their take on file uploads, pretty similar to what we've done, what we're doing in this lesson, but just an alternate resource for you here if you're interested. So I'm going to connect to my AWS database. I'll run my use command. And then I'm going to have a look at my artist table. So the table that we have in the database pretty much mirrors the table we have on our web page. Here we've got 3 columns because we're simply hiding the IDs. Here we've got 4 columns. So what we want to do is I want to add a 5th column, an optional column for a photo. So the photo is not, we will allow nulls, it's not required. And we've got a couple options. We could either store the photo itself right in the database, which I don't generally recommend. It takes up a lot of storage. What I want to do instead is I just actually want to store the file name. So just a varchar column we want to add. So there is a script on D2L. It's this alter table script. So if you click on it, it's a pretty simple script. I thought I would put it up here for you, but simple enough for us to just add in the database. So the script I want to run, oops. I have a stuck enter key on my keyboard. I'm going to alter my artist table. And I'm going to add a column called photo. Now, this is the same script that's on D2L. You can just copy and paste it from here if you like. I'm going to add 100 characters. And the reason I want to make the file name so long is because I want to use that session ID as a prefix and put that at the beginning of the original file. So shrink this down a bit. So I'm going to alter my artist table, adding a column called photo. My alter table ran successfully. And now if we look and run our select query again, now we've got null values for each of the artists. So again, you can type this alter table script, or you can just copy and paste it from D2L. It's the same. Let's go ahead and execute that script. Give you a minute to do that. The other thing that I've done is I've actually gone and collected a photo from the website. All the photos are from the official site of the bands I've listed. I've sized them all, even though they're sort of different orientations. I've sized them all to a standard width of 400 pixels. So if you want those images, I've put them on D2L. So inside of the lesson 10 folder, I've created a zip file where I have a photo of each one of these artists. Again, you may not want those files because you probably you may want to find your own image files on the internet and download them. If you want a copy of mine, you can just download the zip. So it has a 400 pixel wide photo of each of these 6 artists. So you may want to grab an image, or for now, you can just upload any old image. Doesn't matter if it's the proper image or not. So what we want to do is we're going to need to modify both our artist page as well as our save artist page so that we can allow users to upload photos. So I'm going to open up my artist form. And the first thing I'm going to do here, yes, when we're editing, so this code at the top is when a user's editing, when we're getting the artist. We'll deal with this a little bit later. So inside of our form, first thing I want to do, so on my page, it's line 44, I'm going to add the encoding type attribute because we want to include a file input in our form. So make sure you add your encoding type to your form. And then I want to add another field set so that a user could upload a photo. I'm going to call my box my input photo. I'm not going to put a star in the label because the photo is optional. It's not required. So we'll create a new input called photo. We'll also give it an ID of photo. And we'll specify that the type is file. But that's the only change we need to make on here for now. Yes, we'll need to make some more changes to display the existing photo, but we'll do that later. So I'm going to save that. So this field set is new. We'll put that above our hidden artist ID. Basically just a label and a simple input where we're adding the type equals file attribute. And on line 44, we've added the encoding type. So we're going to need to make some changes now to save artist, some additions to save artist.php so that we can check for an uploaded file. If there is an uploaded file, we want to make sure that it's either a PNG file or a JPG file. We're going to want to give it a unique name and copy it out of the temp upload location to the, I believe we already have an IMG folder in the project. Yeah, I do have an IMG folder. We created it last week and we put our little show and hide buttons for the password on the register form. So we're going to want to upload to the IMG folder. Actually, in fact, maybe we'll create a subfolder. Rather than putting these files directly in the root of images, maybe these images are going to be our own site images, and I'll want to create a separate subfolder for any artist photos, because that's really the data. So I'm going to separate out the images that are part of our site design and layout from the images that are related to the actual artist. So in here, I'll create a new directory. I'll just call it artists. So we know that any photos that get uploaded here really are photos of the artists. So that's going to be our destination when we call move uploaded file. So now I want to open up the save artist page. And we can add our validation before we say okay and connect to the database. Let's add photo attribute. Now let's just see what happens here for a moment. Down at the bottom, we have, okay, so if everything's successful, we now have a redirect. I'm going to comment out this redirect temporarily while we're working through our file upload code. I'll re-enable this at the end, but I don't want any redirect to happen on this page for now. Same with our, I'm going to comment out the try and the catch, because if any errors happen right now, we want to actually see those error messages. We don't want to get taken to the error page. So I've commented out lines 79 to 83, and I've commented out our try. So let's just see if I edit an artist right now and don't upload anything. This may cause an issue. So we may need an if statement here to say if a file has been uploaded. I'm just going to try it out like this and see what happens. So rather than creating a new artist, I'm just going to go and edit one. I'm not going to make any changes, and I won't pick a file for now. We'll see what happens. Okay, so no error. So that's okay. It did run an update, but that's fine. So now we want to validate the photo. So we're not going to check let's see. So what happens? We can try to use the empty function. May not be our best way of checking, but we'll see. So if our photo is not empty, now we already have a variable called name. So we'll say photo name equals. Now we want to check the type. We're going to use, actually, set up our EMP name variable. We want to check the type. So if we'll create one more variable. So we'll use MIME content type to check in the temporary location. And again, MIME content type, this will give us the actual file type. It's not just checking the extension. It is checking the proper file type. So if our type is not an image / JPEJ and type also not equal to, so it's neither one of these, we want to throw an error. In this case, we'll say photo must be a we'll set OK equal to false. Okay. And we can actually stop processing. In this case, we don't need to do anything else. If the user's uploaded something that's not proper. So let's try this out first. We're going to get the name. We're going to get the temporary location. We're going to check the content type. And if it's not a JPEG or a PNG file, we're going to throw an error. So I'm going to try uploading a file that is not a JPEG or PNG, and we should get this message. Let's try it. So I'm going to we'll pick our text document. Actually, no, that is actually an image. So I want to pick something else. So I'll pick a Word document. Okay, so it tells us the photo is not a valid file. If I do pick an actual JPG or PNG, it should work at this point. It's not actually saving anything, but I won't get an error. Right? Okay, so there's our check. Now, in this case, we want to generate the unique name. So we want to use the session. And save photo to img/artists folder. I'm just going to check whether we're calling session start anywhere on this page. We do. We call it up here, so we can't call it again, which is fine. So we're going to set up our unique name with our session ID method. We're prefixing the original file name with the session. Then we're going to call move uploaded file from the temporary location. And we want this to go to img/artists. I'm using double quotes so I can inject my PHP variable right where it is. So our new photo name that includes the session is going to go into img artist photo name. We also now need to update the database to include this variable. Now, this variable is not initialized, so if there's no photo, we don't want it to crash. So when I try to use this down here, we're going to need to bind a parameter. I don't want it to crash, so I'm going to actually initialize this photo name variable up at the top. I will initialize it to null. I can also comment out this echo of the name variable. We used that weeks ago. We don't need that. So I'll initialize it to null. If we have a photo, we are setting it first to the original uploaded file name, and then we're modifying it with the session ID and a dash as the prefix. So now I want to modify both our insert and our update. So in insert, we're going to add the column, and we're going to add a parameter called photo. In my update statement, again, we'll add a comma. I'm going to add this to the update. I'll leave this code up here for a minute so you can catch up. So our insert has got a new column, a new parameter. Our update also has the photo column and a new parameter. This means we're going to need one more bind param statement. And when there's no photo, we're just filling it with a null. If there is a photo, we then want to use our unique photo name variable as the parameter value. We're filling the parameter we've called photo up above, but the value we're giving it has a slightly different name. We're using our photo name variable. And it's going to be a string parameter. We're going to use 100 characters. That'll give us space if we have a fairly long file name, and the session ID prefix at the beginning. So we'll save this, and we'll see what happens. I'm going to now say use 4 parameter placeholders, name, year, website, and photo. And in our update, name, year founded, website, and photo. So now I'm going to go and try to edit. And I want to include my actual photo. So again, you can download your own photos. You can use the ones I put on D2L. So here's my photo of the Beatles. It's a JPG file. So some of these are PNGs and some are JPGs. I'll pick the Beatles and go to save. It says the artist was saved, so that's good. So now, a couple things I want to check. A, did the file name get saved to my database? It did. So I've got my session ID that starts with UI9 prefixed in the Beatles.jpg. And then if I go and check in my music library, IMG, artist folder, I now have this same file. It starts with my session ID. And the name matches. So the file name in my operating system matches the file name in my database. Now, we see that it's saved. But if I go back to my list of artists, how do we actually show it? Right? There's no indication here to the user. There's no indication that that file upload actually worked. So I'll also need to check this when I insert a new artist as well. We'll do that in a minute. And then once that's all working, we'll want to re-enable our TryCatch and our redirects. So I'm going to go back to my artist form. So what I want to do is before the save button, if there is an existing photo, I want to display it in an image tag. So now we're going to go back to our artist page. And I'm going to initialize a new variable called photo, and we'll set it to null. We don't need to change our SQL query. We're already selecting all columns when we're editing. And now, when we are editing an artist, we also want to grab the photo along with the name, year, website. So I've added my variable on line 18, and we're populating it when we're looking up an artist on line 38. So make those 2 additions to your artist page. And then we're going to need an if statement down below in between our input, our file input, and our save button, where we're going to check this variable. If photo is empty, if photo is not empty, we're going to want to render that photo using an HTML image tag, an IMG tag. So we'll come down here, and after our field set, put on PHP tags, and we will display artist photo, if any. So if our photo variable isn't null, so our path is going to be img/artists/ and then I'm going to append on photo variable. So that's going to be our source. The quotes are a bit tricky. So we open the double quote here, close the single quote, append on our photo name, and then we end the src attribute here. So that's single quote, double quote. I'll maybe just put on a standard alt tag describing it. We'll also probably want to push it over to the right a little bit, but we'll try it like this first. So this way, when we edit the artist, we can actually see their photo. So we'll try this. Let's look in the browser. So if I refresh the Beatles now I get the photo showing up here. Now the layout's a little wonky. It's left aligned. I probably want it aligned here, and I want it above my button. So I should put it in its own little container. So maybe put it in a div. We'll offset it by 2. I'm going to check that's the right class. We'll just say offset 2. We'll just nest the image tag inside of a div that's offset by 2. That should put the save button down below and hopefully left align the image with the other items on the form. We'll see if that works. Oh, I've got a closing div tag here. PHP Storm automatically closed my div off. Here, I don't want the end div tag until my image is displayed. We'll try one more time. Okay, so there are we could probably use a little bit of padding, but our format's better. Now, what happens if I go and access an artist without an image? So in this case, we just don't see anything. If the photo is null, nothing shows up. But where we do have an image, it's here. I'll go back and maybe put in some of my other photos. So here's the Green Day photo I downloaded, different scale, but same width, the 400 pixels. So now the image is going to get displayed here as well. So again, here's the code we used. Now I should probably try this out when I'm adding an artist as well. We can see it's working when we're editing. What about when we are adding? So I'm going to add a new artist, and I should check both scenarios, that what happens when there is a photo, what happens when there isn't a photo, and make sure we haven't broken any of that code and that the photo does get saved. So I'm going to go back and try this. So I'll make a new artist. I'll delete it after. I just want to make sure I can still save an artist without a photo. New test 1. Okay, so notice now, MIME content type, when the photo's not included, it's saying, yeah, there's a problem here. We can't inspect. So our little check is going to see what happens actually when we edit, if we get the same error. So if I edit but don't include, I'll go to the Lumineers. I'm not going to include a photo. Okay, so our empty check isn't quite serving us. We're going to go to our save page. So this doesn't evaluate to empty without a photo. So instead, this check isn't going to work. So let's just inspect our error. So empty file name or path. So I think what we'll want to maybe check is, let's check the photo temp name. So if that's empty, there is no temporary name. So nothing got uploaded to the temp folder. In that case, there is no image. So I'll just go back. First, we'll make sure it works here when I edit. Okay, no problem. Now, what about if I go back and create a new artist? Again, no image first, and then we'll try it with an actual image. So now I can save a new artist. Go back to my list. And now our new artist is here. Okay. Now, can I edit without an image? So I can edit without an image. And I can add without an image. What about adding a new artist with an image? Let's see, we can delete that one. Now I'm going to add a new one. We will add an image this time. I can probably put my redirect back. I think things are working now the way they should. So now if I go and look at so now my image is here. I can delete this. And then we'll do one more quick thing. So I'm going to delete. So the last thing I want to do is, what if I want to show just a little thumbnail here? If we do have an image, we want it to show up in the list as well. So I'm going to go back to my save page first. I'm going to re-enable our TryCatch. So I'm going to re-enable my try, as well as our redirect. So I'm going to uncomment just a control/. So now my save page is the error handling and the redirection on a successful save is here. I'll just put that back. And then on our artist list, I want to display a little thumbnail of the image if there is one. So let's just open our artist list. So if we look, what we could do is we could add a little thumbnail over here to the right of the website if there is one. And maybe even make that a link to the full-scale image. So after our website, echo, we can say if not empty our artist photo column. We'll create a new column. And then we'll add just like we did previously. I'll end the single quote and we'll append on our artist photo. Open our single quote, double quote back up. So alt equals photo. And the last attribute I want is I want to set a width. Actually, better off to give it a class. Equals. We'll call it list thumb, which I'll style in the CSS. Otherwise, we'll just echo an empty column. When we have a photo, we want to display it, but we don't want it to display it at the 400 width scale. There is a Bootstrap thumbnail class. I guess we could try that first, and if not, we don't like it, we can create our own class, or I could override the thumb class. So let's see what happens here in our artist list. Yeah, Zach, that soup photo was from a customer site. It was building, it was a home meal delivery service. So that was their photo I used a while ago. So now if I refresh, let's see what we get here. Okay, did I save my changes? let's see. Because I've used artist photo instead of my variable is called value. So we're checking the value. Value refers to the current element in our array. I should have used value, not artist. Okay, so that thumb class is way, way too big. It's functional, but I'm going to override that class. I need to override that class in our CSS. Our header also, this should be, I need an extra empty th here, as well as over here. So the top of the table, I'm going to add 2 empty th tags. Break them onto a separate line. So after the website, I should fix those lines ending halfway across the screen. Okay, so now they extend. So just add 2 empty th tags after the closing website th. And then inside of our CSS, I'm going to override the thumb class. So I'm going to open up my CSS, and that should be pretty much it for today. So in our styles, try setting our thumbnails to a width of 75 pixels only. That should scale the height appropriately. So that's better. So at least the users can see the images. So if I go ahead and add, so again, I did dot thumb, so I'm overriding the Bootstrap class. We're not creating a thumbnail image, it's still the full image, but it's just being displayed scaled down to a width of 75 pixels and maintaining the aspect ratio. So if I want to now go and edit my other artists, I could put in the additional photos that I downloaded for each artist. My redirect is back. So now it'll jump me back to the list. I can now start to see the photos. I'll put in the other couple of photos too. I'll also maybe make a note on my homepage of the source of my images as well. So each time I upload a new photo, we can see it here on the main list page. And I may as well add my last one, then I'll just add some content to my homepage. So when I go home, it's got a little description of the site. I'm going to also use a container class to give this some padding over on the left. So I'm just going to open up my homepage, my index. I'll put in a main class here. Around the page content. Say all artist images. sourced from the artist URLs listed. So also I'm mentioning where this content is coming from. Probably a good idea. So now on my homepage, it's bumped over a little bit and I'm telling people, you know, these are not my images, at least this is where I got them. Okay, so there's our file uploads for today. So this process is basically the same every time. We use the encoding type in our form. We use a file input box. We want to check and validate that we got a valid file type for what we're expecting. We want to name it uniquely. The session ID I find is a useful way to do that. And then we call move uploaded file to save that file permanently. So you'll be able to use this in your assignments. If you're doing option A, then you should be doing something similar to what we did today. So along with the data, when you're adding or editing a record, you should be able to include an image. If you're doing option B, the content management system, then in the site control panel, this should be a logo that the user can upload, and whatever file they upload in the site control panel, it shows up in the header on all the pages of the site. I'm going to push everything up to GitHub now, so just give me a second to do that. And I'm going to stop the stream in a moment. And what I will ask, if you have questions, I'm going to hang around in the WebEx room. So if you, I'm going to stop the YouTube stream, but if you have any questions, then feel free to ask them, and you can either ask them in the chat or you can turn your microphone on and we can chat live in the WebEx room. And other than that, just keep working on assignment 2. And if you need an appointment, then be sure to set one up with me and we can meet through WebEx. Thanks for tuning in this morning. And remember, your quiz is due midnight tonight.